By the close of the First World War, the machinery of industrial slaughter had transformed how nations imagined the next great conflict. Yet the individual foot soldier still carried a weapon rooted firmly in the previous century. Across the muddy battlefields of Europe, millions of men had fought and died gripping bolt-action rifles, sturdy and accurate instruments that demanded a deliberate ritual of firing. A soldier squeezed the trigger, then lowered the weapon slightly, worked a bolt handle up and back to eject the spent brass, drove it forward and down to chamber a fresh round, and only then could aim again. In the calm of a rifle range, this motion was elegant. In the chaos of combat, with artillery falling and men charging, those few seconds of manual cycling could mean the difference between life and death. Through the 1920s and into the 1930s, nearly every major army in the world still armed its infantry this way. From the German Mauser to the British Lee Enfield to the American Springfield Model 1903. The problem was clear to any officer who studied the trench warfare that had just ended. What the ordinary infantryman needed was a rifle that loaded itself, a self-loading or semi-automatic weapon that would fire once with each pull of the trigger and use the energy of the cartridge to eject the empty case and chamber the next round automatically. Such a rifle would multiply a single soldier's firepower without turning him into a machine gunner. It would let him keep his eyes on the enemy and his weapon on his shoulder. The concept was not new, but the execution was fiendishly difficult. A general-issue battle rifle had to be light enough to carry all day, rugged enough to survive mud, sand, and freezing rain, reliable enough to fire thousands of rounds without jamming, and cheap enough to manufacture by the millions. No major army had yet solved that combination of demands for its rank and file. Inventors had been chasing the idea for decades. Early semi-automatic experiments produced clever but fragile mechanisms, weapons that worked beautifully in a laboratory and failed in the field. In the United States, the most serious rival design came from John Pedersen, a gifted and respected firearms engineer whose reputation carried enormous weight inside the Army's ordnance establishment. Pedersen developed an elegant toggle-action rifle chambered for a new, smaller cartridge he championed, the .276 Pedersen. His design relied on a hinged mechanism and required cartridges coated with a thin lubricant to function smoothly, an awkward requirement for a combat weapon that would live in dirt. Around Pedersen's rifle swirled a broader argument that consumed the Army for years, a debate not merely about mechanisms but about ammunition itself. Should the new rifle use a lighter cartridge, easier to shoot rapidly and to carry in quantity? Or should it retain the heavy, powerful, and thoroughly proven round already stockpiled in vast numbers? Into this contest of engineering and bureaucracy stepped a quiet, methodical man named John Garand. Born in Quebec, Canada, in 1888, Garand had moved as a boy to New England, where he grew up around textile mills and machine shops and developed an instinctive genius for tools and mechanisms. He was not a formally trained academic engineer, but a tool maker and designer of extraordinary practical skill, a man who thought in metal. During the First World War, he had worked on a light machine gun concept, and his talents drew the attention of the government. In the early 1920s, he took a position at Springfield Armory in Massachusetts, the venerable federal arsenal that had produced American military arms since the days of George Washington. There, as a civilian employee of the United States government, Garand began the long, patient labor of designing a semi-automatic infantry rifle, a project that would consume more than a decade of his life. Garand's approach was gas operation. When a cartridge fired, a small portion of the high-pressure gas driving the bullet down the barrel was tapped off and used to push a piston and operating rod, which in turn worked the action. His design paired this gas system with a rotating bolt that locked securely into the receiver at the moment of firing and then unlocked to cycle. The result was a robust, self-contained mechanism that fed from a distinctive 8-round en bloc clip. Unlike a detachable box magazine, this clip was inserted whole into the rifle from the top, holding all 8 cartridges in a light metal frame. As the soldier fired, the mechanism stripped rounds from the clip one by one, and when the last was gone, the empty clip was automatically ejected. The finished rifle weighed roughly 9.5 pounds, a solid, substantial weapon that felt reassuringly durable in a soldier's hands. For much of its development, the rifle was designed around Pedersen's lighter .2I-76 cartridge, which many ordnance experts favored for its softer recoil and greater rate of controllable fire. Garand built and tested versions in that caliber, and for a time, the smaller rounds seemed destined to become the American standard. Then, in 1932, the decision was taken out of the engineer's hands. General Douglas MacArthur, then the Army Chief of Staff, weighed the tactical arguments against the cold realities of logistics and money. The nation already possessed enormous stockpiles of the standard .30 Aero-6 cartridge, along with the factories, tooling, and machine guns built around it. In the depths of the Great Depression, the expense of adopting an entirely new caliber was difficult to justify, and the disruption to wartime supply would be severe. MacArthur ruled that the new rifle would fire the existing .30-06 round. Garand, ever the pragmatic craftsman, adapted his design to the more powerful cartridge, and the .276 experiment, along with Pedersen's rifle, faded into history. After years of refinement and testing, the weapon was formally adopted in 1936 as the United States rifle, caliber .30 M1. It was a landmark decision, for it committed the American Army to becoming the first in the world to make a semi-automatic rifle its standard infantry arm. Yet, adoption on paper was far from mastery in production. Early rifles used what was called a gas trap system, in which gas was collected at the very muzzle of the barrel. In field trials and early service, this arrangement revealed troubling flaws, including a notorious tendency for malfunctions, and complaints emerged about the rifle's behavior with the 7th round of the clip, a problem tied to the gas mechanism and accuracy that generated real controversy and threatened confidence in the whole program. Around 1939 and 1940, Garand and the Armory engineers reworked the system, abandoning the muzzle gas trap in favor of a simpler and far more reliable gas port drilled into the underside of the barrel farther back. This redesign transformed the rifle's dependability and became the pattern for the millions that would follow. Manufacturing, however, crawled at first. Springfield Armory had to design and build the specialized machinery to produce a weapon of such complexity and quantity, and the early ramp was painfully slow, producing only modest numbers as the world slid toward another war. As tensions rose and it became clear that the United States might soon be drawn into the conflict, the government sought a second source. The Winchester Repeating Arms Company took up production of the M1, joining Springfield to expand output. When Japan struck Pearl Harbor in December 1941 and America entered the Second World War, the industrial machine finally roared to full capacity, and the trickle of rifles became a flood. The first true production M1 left Springfield Armory in 1937, and for the next several years, output climbed only gradually as the arsenal wrestled its complex tooling into order. By the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Army had at last accumulated meaningful stocks, and thereafter, the numbers swelled dramatically, with Springfield and Winchester between them, delivering the rifle in the millions. The weapon that reached the troops was more than a bare rifle. It could mount a bayonet at the muzzle, accept an adapter for launching rifle grenades, and be fitted with a telescopic sight for use by snipers, making it a flexible foundation for the infantryman's many tasks, rather than a single-purpose arm. The consequences on the battlefield were profound. American infantry went to war carrying a rifle that no other major army could match in general issue. Where German, Japanese, and British soldiers still worked bolt handles between shots, the American rifleman could fire 8 aimed rounds as fast as he could pull the trigger, then reload in an instant by pressing a fresh clip into place. That firepower advantage, multiplied across entire squads and companies, gave American units a volume of accurate fire that repeatedly stunned their opponents. The rifle developed its own folklore, including the sharp, unmistakable metallic ping that rang out when the empty clip was ejected after the final shot, a sound so distinctive it became part of the weapon's legend. General George S. Patton, never a man given to faint praise, called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. By the end of the Second World War, American factories had produced roughly 4 million M1 rifles, arming a generation of soldiers across Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific. The rifle was not without its quirks. The M-block clip, so quick to load as a whole, could not easily be topped up with loose rounds once partly emptied. So a soldier often faced a choice between firing off his remaining cartridges or reloading a nearly full clip and wasting the rest. The famous ping of the ejecting clip, endearing in memory, carried a hidden danger, for a listening enemy might know in that instant that a rifle stood empty. Yet these were small prices for the advantage the weapon conferred. Its influence outlasted the Second World War, for it served again through the Korean War, and its basic principles were carried forward into the rifles that succeeded it in American service. The legacy of that quiet Springfield toolmaker's work stretched far beyond the war he helped win. The M1 proved that a durable, mass-produced semi-automatic battle rifle was not a fantasy, but an achievable standard, and it reshaped the expectations of every army that came afterward. Its gas-operated rotating bolt design influenced generations of firearms that followed, including later American service rifles that borrowed directly from its principles and lineage. It served on into the Korean War and remained in use around the world for decades. John Garand himself, remarkably, never grew rich from the rifle that bore his name, for he had designed it as a government employee and held no personal claim to profit from its production. Yet his creation earned a lasting place in history. Today, surviving M1 Garands are prized by collectors, honored in military ceremonies, and still fired at ranges and competitions by enthusiasts who cherish the solid heft, the smooth action, and that famous ringing ping. More than 80 years after it first went to war, the rifle that gave the ordinary American soldier the firepower of the future remains a monument to patient engineering and to the man who spent a decade perfecting it.